My Farmall M tractor leaks gas. If yours leaks out of the carburetor when it's setting, or if it only runs with the choke pulled partway out, then it's probably time for a carburetor rebuild. Go ahead and follow along. I will show you every step in the process, and at the end, you'll have the confidence to rebuild your very own Farmall M carburetor. There are 2 screws at the top of your throttle shaft which you'll want to take out so that you can remove your throttle shaft and butterfly. I'm going to do that and some further disassembly on this carburetor. This behind me is a Farmall M, but the same style of carburetor can also be found on a Super M, a 350, 400, or 450 tractor. There are some minor differences, mostly just the size of the carburetor, but I definitely think that you'd be able to follow along if you're working on one of those other models. Those screws up there are really tight, but I got them both loose. I am going to remove this throttle shaft up here. I'm going to take the 4 bolts off around the perimeter of the carburetor. I'm going to take out my needles and do all that disassembly. We'll speed up and then we'll go much slower through the reassemble process. This tube right here is a pitfall, a common pitfall in carburetors. When you pull your 2 halves apart, make sure that you pull straight up, not side to side, as if you do, you'll likely damage this little tube that comes up through here. I'm taking off my float, and underneath it, you can see the needle and seat. The needle will just drop out like that, and then you'll use a socket to get the seat out. I am suspicious that this is where the problem lied in my carburetor, due to it leaking. So hopefully replacing these pieces will solve that problem. That seat was really tight. There's a little gasket behind it. Make sure you get your old gasket out, and it's all cleaned up like that. Next, we are going to switch to the bottom of the carburetor. You can see in the bowl here, we have an emulsion tube. It's a different size socket. So let me switch here, and you just use a deep well socket to get onto that emulsion tube. Loosen it up, and then it will come the rest of the way. Sometimes they're pretty long. Yeah. There we go. Again, little gasket on there you want to make sure you have removed. Then I'm going to flip this over. I'm just going to hold it because I don't want to smash that tube quite yet. Down here we'll take both this plug out as well as the needle. I removed 1 screw out of the plate and shaft inside for my choke. Then I can pull the choke shaft out, and then the plate will come next, or should come next. I'm guessing I'll have to use some pliers. There we go. There's the plate and the shaft both out for the choke. I am choosing to leave this tube alone. Sometimes you'll take your carburetor apart and it'll be broken and you will have to replace it. Or if yours is in good condition like mine, you can just stick a small wire through it and clean it. I did try to unscrew it and it won't budge. I don't want to break it. I know that I can just clean it and that'll be sufficient for this carburetor. So if you are in a similar boat as me where you can just clean yours, do that instead of trying to remove it and replace it. Most of the time when you try to remove it, you end up breaking it and then you're in bigger trouble. Down here on the bottom, you do have this plug that was through the end of the emulsion tube, so you can just stick a screwdriver through here and then just drive that through. In the comprehensive kit, you get a new one of these. So with those removed, that does it for the bottom of my carburetor. The top of my carburetor is all disassembled. So at this point, I am going to very thoroughly clean my carburetor. I'm going to use some carb cleaner with the straw on the end so I can go through every single passageway. I'll spray it once, follow with a blow-off nozzle, spray it a second time, and follow with a blow-off nozzle the second time. I want this to be very thoroughly cleaned. That is the secret to my success here. So make sure when you rebuild yours that you get yours clean as well. When it's time for you to purchase parts, there are a couple different levels of carburetor kits that you can purchase. I'm going to talk through the levels of kits really quick with you so that you can make a really good choice as to what kit you want for your carburetor. The first kit shown here is a comprehensive kit. This is the kit that I used on the video. You can see that this includes the throttle shaft bushings, doors for both your choke and throttle, your new fuel screen here, emulsion tube, choke and throttle shafts, screws or bolts for the perimeter of your carburetor, plus pieces that would be in a lesser kit. If you want to do a really thorough job, then you would choose this comprehensive kit. If you want to do a good job on your carburetor, then you would pick this kit here, which is called a complete kit. This kit will still do a very good job by your carburetor. You still get new throttle and choke shafts. You get a new choke door, but not the throttle door. You still get an emulsion tube, your needle here, also your needle and seat. This is still a really good kit. If your carburetor isn't having major issues or you just want to do a light cleanup and freshen up on it, then you could pick either this basic kit or this economy kit. The difference between the two is that one comes with the throttle shaft, the other one does not. These are both good kits, very similar, very close in price. In my opinion, it's worth paying the few extra dollars to get the kit that has the new throttle shaft with it. Next, we have both this small kit here, which is only gaskets. Choose this kit in your cart when you think that you might have to redo your carburetor, meaning you put it all together and you're like, this is my first time doing a carburetor, I might need to go back at it. Then you would want to just have another gasket on hand so that you can pop that carburetor apart without damaging the gasket. A float is also available to you. It is always sold separate from the kit. You would want to replace your float if your old one is corroded, if it's dented, if you're having problems with it leaking like mine, then you would want to replace the float. Otherwise, sometimes you can reuse your float. New sediment bowls are available. We offer a couple different styles which you can match up based off of the listing on our website. And then we also have a fuel line here. Now it's important that you identify your carburetor correctly. There are a couple different models of carburetors that came on an M, plus the numbers that were available on the other models of tractors. So you need to read the brass tag that's on the top of your carburetor to find your carburetor number. Every once in a while, a carburetor tag will have fallen off. The way to identify which kit you need is to measure the throttle shaft on your carburetor. There are two different lengths and it's a very fine measurement. So you'll need to use like a digital caliper to measure it, and then you can measure the length of your throttle shaft, match it up to the description, and that will help you get the right kit if you don't have an ID number on your carburetor. All of these parts are available on my website, which is farmtractorrepair.com. You can purchase these kits there as well as the other parts. We also have Farmall M engine parts and valve kits that match the videos that we have. My website is farmtractorrepair.com, and your purchase on my site helps to fund future tractor tutorials. I'm using a comprehensive kit today, so I emptied all of my kit into this magnetic bowl so that I can keep track of all the little pieces and they don't roll away on me. I'd recommend that you do the same. I picked out a few pieces here for the bottom of the bowl that I'm going to talk to you about first. There is a packing inside here that's important you remove before you put your new packing in. I did take my carburetor bowl to a sandblaster and sandblasted out that old packing just to make sure that it's all completely removed, and you could do the same if you want to. Your new packing is graphite. Here it is. The pitfall here is that people will smash this in here and then their needle won't go in. So the way I like to do it is to find the three pieces that kind of go together. I'm going to put the needle into here first. And then once I get past that about thus far, I'm gonna slide this graphite over top like that, and then drive it in like so. So I'm gonna get this one started here first. It's a little tricky to get started because you're resisting that packing. But once you have it started, you can tighten it up with a wrench. I think it's 7/16. Yeah. There you go. I have mine, oops, I had it started and then I twisted it just wrong. I don't want to get it cross-threaded there. Okay, now I have a good start on it. So I would just tighten this up the rest of the way with the packing in there, and then, let me back that out. The packing in there, and then I tighten up the needle all of the way. That's the procedure for the bottom there. The next step is another 2-piece set here, like this. This is your drain. So again, you get this started very carefully, just like that, and then you put your drain in here and tighten that up all the way. Your next piece here has a gasket underneath. I'm just gonna rest that there, and then I'm gonna flip it over, and when I tighten up the emulsion tube, that'll pull that tightly into the bottom of the bowl. Your next step is to install your choke shaft. There is a little tiny detent ball that goes right here, and then you can see that there's a little divot for it inside your shaft. So that lines up one on top of the other, and that's a piece that if you miss it, it's gonna roll away on you. So make sure you get it in there. And then once you do, you can turn your shaft up like that. And when I did, I lost my detent ball. So let's try that again. There we go. Gotta make sure that it's lined up with the spot on the shaft where that little groove is for it. There it is. I'm gonna hold that detent ball in there while I move the choke up. The danger is that if you move it up all the way, you'll go past where that ball rests. Then you're ready to put your door in. Notice that there's the arrow. The arrow goes up, just like you would imagine. And then I'm gonna set this in there, just like that. I'll line up the plate with the holes on the shaft. And then I have my screws on a little self-starting screwdriver, which I will use to start those. I have to tip my carburetor up in order to see those holes, so unfortunately you can't see this step, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just line up those holes and then put the screws in. This next step might be the hardest part in the whole carburetor, but I'm going to break it down for you, and hopefully you'll follow these steps and it'll be really easy for you. The first thing you need to do is remove the Welsh plug that is up here by your throttle shaft. So I'm going to use a punch like this. Actually, I'm going to use a screwdriver because I think that my punch wasn't long enough. I'm going to put my screwdriver through there, and then I'm just going to tap that through until my plug comes out the other end. Just making sure that I'm on the right spot. There we go. I see it. It looks like it's moving, and there it just fell out. So now my plug is out. The next thing I want to do is get both of my bushings out. There's one on both ends. So the way that I'm going to do this is I put some threads into the bushing that's in there right now. I used this tap, I already forgot what size it was, 3/8, to put threads onto my bushing. You can probably see that the threads are already on there. By adding those threads, it allows me to put a bolt through there like this. I don't have to get it super tight, just by hand. And then I can drive that bushing out the same way that I drove out the plug. So I'm going to come back from the opposite way, put my punch right on to the bolt, and drive that bushing out. I'm going to try a punch instead of a screwdriver here because this one's going to come out a little bit harder. There you go. I see it coming. Just watch it move. There it goes. Now I'm going to pull my punch out, and I want to show you that my bushing is down here. I did not put threads on the other side because I had to get that Welsh plug out of there first. So I would follow those same steps to get the bushing out of the other side. With my old bushings removed, then I will be ready to put new bushings in. You get 2 new bushings in your comprehensive kit. One has holes. There's 2 holes. They go towards the bottom, and the holes go on this end. The one that is solid goes on the other end of the carburetor. You want to replace your throttle bushings when you put your new throttle shaft in and there's play. That's common. The throttle shaft gets a lot of use, and therefore these bushings do get worn out, and by replacing them, it's going to give you a really tight seal on your throttle shaft and allow that to operate well. So you might look at this and say, those steps are too hard. I'm just gonna stick with the throttle bushings that I have, and as long as they aren't sloppy, you can reuse them. Or you can say, I can totally handle that. I have a tap set. Then definitely go for it. It's worth the effort to go ahead and replace these bushings in this way. When you're ready to put your new bushing in, you can use a bolt like this one. I think this was a 5/16 bolt. You can see that I shaved off the head just enough so that it will catch onto the bushing, and that allows me to use it as a driver to drive both of my new bushings in. Okay, my bushing has bottomed out and it's also flush. I'm just going to drive that bolt out and make sure that I'm happy with how it is. Then I'm also going to put my new shaft through there. It fits nice and it moves back and forth freely. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's good. Yours should move freely as well without any binding after you replace those bushings. I'm just tightening up my second screw here. Let me show you. I want them both to be very tight. That looks really good. I can move it back and forth as it should, and it's in the proper rotation here. So the next thing I'm gonna do is screw this screw in all the way until it touches there. My next step is to put the venturi in, just drops in like that. And then I'm going to set the gasket on top. It just slides over top of the venturi, and you can see that the holes line up appropriately. The seat is next with that small gasket on the end. You can see that, oops, that drops in place like that. I'm gonna get it started by hand, and then I'm tightening up with a socket here. After this, I'll drop the seat in there, and then the float rests on top of it. Here we go. Here, or my needle, I think I just call it a seat. This is my needle with the rubber tip. And then my float comes on top of here. This pin just drives through here. Ooh, let me try the other way. There we go. Then through the float. It's hard to get lined up. Maybe I have it upside down. There we go. That's much easier. Okay, and then I'll chap it through the rest of the way with a needle nose. Looks like I'm hung up just a little bit on that end. Once I have it set, then I want to make sure that both of the pontoons to the float are straight across. There will be a measurement in the kit that varies by carburetor. So you can use a ruler to measure, but the best thing that you're looking at is just making sure that those pontoons are straight. If they need a little bit of adjustment, you can bend it right here at the tip, but usually they're set to go right from the factory. Your idle needle screws in here with a spring on it. You should screw yours all the way down until it stops and then come back out one full turn. That's a really good adjustment to start with while it's on the bench. Once it's on the tractor, you can always make an adjustment to the idle, and I'll show you how to do that, but you can just start with that one turn. So there's where it bottoms out, and then you can see me go back out one whole turn. The other piece you need to put in is this screen. If you choose a lesser kit than the comprehensive kit that I'm using here, and your screen is in good condition, clean it very thoroughly before you put it back in. Or buy a comprehensive kit. This is really good to put it in as new. Then you can use a wrench here to tighten it up. Notice that I'm using the closed box end of the wrench, not the open end, so I don't damage it. With that, you can see that I have my old gasket remains cleaned off, same with the tractor, and now I'm ready to put this back onto the tractor. Once your tractor is running, you can make some adjustments to the idle. The first screw here is where you would make an adjustment to the speed of idle. Let me back this out and I'll let you hear the difference. Then if you turn it in, it's going to pick up. You hear that there? That's too high of an idle. I'm going to back it out. I like mine to idle a little bit slower. That seems good to me, about right there. Then this next adjustment with this screw is where you would have, if you have a flutter in the idle, it's just not running smooth. You back that out so you can hear a difference. You can hear it change there. You screw that back in to make it run a little better. Just listen closely to your tractor. I think it's running smooth right about there. You can make those fine-tuning adjustments on your tractor. Just listen to it, and it'll make a difference there. It also helps if you turn the gas on your sediment bowl, then your tractor will run longer. But I made the adjustments that I needed. You could see that there's 2 adjustments there for your idle, both the speed and taking the flutter out of the idle. Listen to your tractor, take time to do those adjustments, as it does make a difference. I hope that after you've watched this video, you are ready to tackle your own carburetor and see that it is something that you can definitely do in your own shop. When you're ready to purchase parts, you can do so on my site, which is farmtractorrepair.com. Also, you can subscribe to my channel as we release new videos often, and a Farmall M is covered from time to time. You can also look back in history of videos and you'll see a complete engine rebuild on a Farmall H, which applies to this M, and other tutorials applicable to this tractor as well.